Hi everyone, wherever you are, I hope you are doing well. My name is Mar and I'm happy to present part of the working process More Than Song and Calls, Me Repetitive Tones for Humpback whales in the breeding area of Colombia. And first of all, I'd like to thank the whole team that makes this project possible. Just as a reminder, for those who are not familiar with the topic, humpback whales are one of the species with the most complex and diverse vocal repertoire. And this vocal repertoire consists in two main categories. First, the songs that are famous. These are loud, long, complex, and stereotyped sequence of sounds. The songs are dynamic, so they change over time, so different populations, they end up singing different songs, and they are usually produced by males in the breeding areas. The second category are the lesser known social calls, and this is call type that is variable in intensity. They are unpredictable and they occur wherever the whales are, so breeding, feeding areas, and also during migrations. Both sexes can produce these sounds and they are normally associated with social interactions. A very interesting subtype of these calls are the feeding calls, and they are produced during the bubble nets in Alaska. They are meant to be used for coordination of the group and also for the prey manipulation. As an example of different functions that these social calls could have, I show you here a social call that is recorded, a sequence of social calls that are recorded while monitoring a competitive group of males. You can see how chaotic this sounds. We have a sequence of lower frequencies calls and higher frequency calls. Sounds pretty unorganized, right? And here we have a different possible function for social calls that could be coordination. We have what I call the breathing sequence, and this occurs right after surfacing here and right after diving, sorry. And the sound I'm bringing today in the study case is a sound that was recorded during the breeding season in Colombia. Colombia is here in the map, and it's part of the breeding ground of the stock G population that feeds in the southern hemisphere. And these sounds are repetitive vocalization that are recorded for more than 8 minutes in 3 different recordings that are up to more than 3 minutes apart. And whether the whale was continuously producing this sound is not known, but we spotted a whale while in a traveling behavior. And because of the characteristics of this repetition of sounds, we called it the repetitive tones. And the conflict with these sounds is that when I try to classify them in the preset categories for the humpback whale's vocal repertoire, they don't fit in any of them. And I'm gonna show you part of the second recording that was recorded. And this recording continues like this, right like this, for more than 3 minutes. This recording here, this piece, is from the last recording that we obtained, and you can notice how saturated it is. So the whale was really close. We were actually able to hear it from above the boat with the aid of the hydrophone. And I want you to see this switch in frequencies. The original recording continues for more than 4 minutes and suddenly stops. For the sound analysis, I'm using Raven Pro 1.5, and I'm creating this kind of boxes around the sounds, and I'm using quartiles and peak frequency measurements to avoid the subjectivity of the study, in cases myself. So this is a summary table, and we can find here the 3 recordings, first, second, and the 3 that is divided into the type 1 and type 2 according to the frequency ranges. So the max frequency we find these two types of calls. This is the lower frequency calls that are below 600 Hertz, and the higher frequency calls that are above 600 Hertz. It's important to notice these high values for the sound noise ratio for the second and the third recording, so that's why I used them for most of the analysis. And interesting, the tone duration, that it's very shorter than 1 second, and very little variation is found in the standard deviation. Also, very little variation in the frequency ranges for the quartiles. So this is telling us that these calls have a high quality with high sound noise ratios and have constant durations and constant intertone intervals. This is the distance between two tones. Also, the frequencies are constant, and we can find the lower frequency type and the higher frequency type. So, to explain the occurrence and the nature of these unique and unusual vocalizations, we thought about different scenarios. And first of all, we thought about the possibility that this is a new type of song for humpback whales, a simple type that it consists only in 1 or 2 units. We thought about these repetitive tones as a way of cry-style song. So this could be an animal that is young or is learning how to sing or is deconstructing a song that was old. Also, we thought about the 52 Hertz whale case that was sometimes explained by the possible presence of an hybrid or an anomalous animal. And also we thought about having different functions as the long-range sonar hypothesis that Mercado proposed to explain a different function for the song. Also could be a case of vocal mimicking, and could be that these repetitive tones have a social and a communicative function. Or could be related to feeding calls from northern populations, or derived from different and not reported yet call types. Of course, the repetitive tones could be a result of an increase of population that leads to cultural divergence, and also could be a result of behavior plasticity. So because of the limitations in acoustic data availability, we can only compare the repetitive tones to songs and social calls. So I'm looking for this pattern of repetitions and this kind of vocalization in the songs, and I found this phrase that contains these repetitive units that are separated. These intervals are similar to the tones, however the frequencies are lower than tones. So this is a repetitive unit found in the song. Regarding a possible relationship with the social calls, I didn't find any similar social call to the tones, nor in the breeding ground, nor in the feeding ground, or the global catalog of the repertoire of social calls for the species. What I found is similarities between the feeding calls and the repetitive tones, especially regarding the frequency ranges. Even if feeding calls are very variable, there are types that match pretty well these frequency ranges and shape of the calls. So coming to the discussion, the repetitive tones could be a simple song, even if simple songs haven't been reported in humpback whales. These single unit songs have been reported for fin whales or blue whales, and even though if they are simple for this species, they present some kind of a structure and silence between phrases, and this feature is not found in the repetitive tones. If these repetitive tones are a crystal song, we don't know. This is not reported in whales, this is reported in birds, but it's still a possible scenario to explore. If the animal was an hybrid or an anomalous animal, this is not testable, and this is a little parsimonious hypothesis. And if the tones had a different function, we cannot test that neither. If it was a result of vocal mimicking, vocal mimicking is not reported in humpback whales, but still a possibility to explore. And about social function, this is always possible for this vocalization, even if there are no social calls reported with the same structure or pattern. we want to highlight the similarities that these repetitive tones present with the feeding calls and other repetitive vocalizations reported in Juneau, in Alaska. And also we can think about a completely different and unknown origin that is always a possibility and that we cannot test. About the cultural divergence and the behavioral plasticity being the origin of the sound, it's always a possibility. So we're coming to the end of the story, and we can say that repetitive tones show mixed traits between song and feeding calls, and it's interesting to point out the similarities of the tones with the feeding calls, not only because of the possibility that very similar sounds to feeding calls are occurring in the breeding area, but also because whales from Alaska and Colombia belong to different populations that have antitropical migration patterns. So are we thinking about convergent evolution, or could we think about acoustic contact between these populations, or maybe interpopulation flags, so these individuals are going from one population to another? So this study doesn't pretend to offer a straightforward answer, but we want to initiate new discussions on the humpback whale vocal repertoire. We want to discuss the definition and the function of the current preset vocal categories, and we also want to discuss the scenarios raised here. It's interesting and it's beautiful to think how complex the animal behavior is and how important it is to study it even if we don't understand it. So with this, I just want to thank again all the people and institutions that make this study possible, and of course thank you for your attention and also for the patience. This is a very unusual way to meet during a conference, but I thank all the organizers of the ABC conference for the effort that they put in it. So thank you.